episode is brought to you by Support the Mountain's Herbal Parasite Cleanse. This formula targets the small and large intestinal tracts and larvae, the most broad-spectrum formula available today. 100% organic, formulated by Dr. Mikio Sankey, author of the Esoteric Acupuncture series. For 10% off your first bottle, visit shopyogahub.com and use the coupon code CLEANSE at checkout. Hello and welcome to YHTV's Flowing into Awareness with visionary and master intuitive Anatara. I'm Christina Suzuma, your host for this program. This week we are talking about Satori this, Satori that. And with us today is the beautiful Anatara,
who is already giggling at the silly title that she wrote.
It's fun to hear them back, isn't it?
It really is, because these things come to me intuitively, and I write them down, and I understand that this is to be the title of today's show, and I don't usually question it. But then when it becomes real, and I hear you say it, I think, what would I think if I heard that?
You have a lot of explaining to do.
I have, and I'm going to start with a bit of a description of what Satori is. It's used traditionally in Zen Buddhism, but by all sorts of people who experience a kind of sudden enlightenment. And we all hear about them, sudden, direct, and real, a feeling of sudden, direct, and real illumination that can't be explained, only experienced. I have asked people to attempt to give me words or share some dialogue with me in the past. I've asked illuminated masters if they could explain this to me, and they can't. Because it is a feeling, and in the very brief experiences of what I would call a Satori illumination that I've had previously in my lifetime, it is something that I am familiar with through the meditation that I do and through the open kind of consciousness and awareness that I have, and yet it is something very, very difficult to describe. What I want to say about my understanding of it right now, before I say anything else, is that to me it really is about uncovering the real you. It's becoming one's highest being as reflected in the moment. So what does that mean? So I'm going to give you an example. I just came back from a trip to Mt Shasta and parts of California, and while on Mt Shasta, both snowshoeing and cross-country skiing up in this brilliant white reflective snow. I was actually out on the sides of the mountain in just sleeveless tank tops because it was so warm and so brilliant and so white. And if any of you have ever been to Mount Shasta, you know that the energy, it's like thriving. It's speaking to you. It's bubbling. It's flowing through you. It's not a kind of pressing you or pressurizing you in any way, but there's this phenomenal available energy that if you allow yourself to, sort of access it, you will as well be as profound and as powerful as it is. There's the access, the easy and direct access to so many types of other beings, star beings, Lemurians, whales and dolphins, ascended masters. And we hear these words, and their signatures are real. And the collective of all of these beings together in one place creates this cornucopia of available and possible energy that you can access. You can become a part of it. You can tune into it and let it move through you and find out how that is also alive in you. What I've known about Mount Shasta before, because I've never been there in the winter, what I've known about Mount Shasta is that it's one of those places that when you start to climb, you feel it actually pulling you up, drawing you up, and taking you up to higher elevations. And it's not just the elevation of feet and meters. It is literally the elevation of consciousness. And while I was sitting in meditation one day out in the snow, in this brilliant snow, I I was immediately illuminated from inside, from outside. I felt my heart expand to a place that I've known it go before, but it expanded and it stayed there. And everything, all of my senses, all of my awareness was what I would sort of say it was supra, of my being. It wasn't me knowing those things. It was the parts of me that are in that illuminated consciousness already, saying, "Here you are. This is where you find your signature within the cosmos." Within the greatness of all of this knowing and all of this understanding and all of this sensation. In those places, in this Satori kind of I don't really want to call it enlightenment, but awareness, there is literally no space and time. You cannot perceive space and time. There's no distance in distance between yourself and something else. If as I reached my hand out to the branch of a tree beside me, my hand was already in the tree. It didn't have to get to the tree. As I paid attention to the thoughts that I was having, to the sense of peace and bliss and love and openness, there was no space or time or distance between what I was and what I knew and that of someone in a war zone or a little rabbit hiding under the snow or anything else going on anywhere else. That the what the word that was coming just now was the ascent into oneness is complete and it is maintained. I found for a number of days after this opening that everything, I was perceiving everything in this way. So driving became a little bit interesting because my car was not just my car on the road. My car was inside all of the other cars on the road. And I found that if I allowed that to happen, I was fine. There was a sense that my bubble was the part of someone else's bubble, was the part of the next person's bubble, was part of the next state, the next country, the next ocean, et cetera, the next cosmic and planetary space. The sureness that the interrelatedness of everything was unbreakable, that there were no limits to it, there were no veils, there was no mist to look through, there was no concept of I start here and I stop here. It was an extended experience and of being in that complete connectedness, oneness, awareness that there is no separation between myself or between my thoughts and anything else. And I found as the days went on, it's now been almost 3 weeks since that experience, that it may not be quite as alive as it was in that first initial moment or days, but it's still here. Another interesting thing happened when I came home and came back to the cold Canadian North, even though I'm on the warm West Coast. I had to light a fire, and I looked at the fire as it was starting to burn, and I could see that I was actually in that fire. I was part of that fire, and I was literally able to put my hand in to move the pieces of wood around and rearrange the pieces of already burning wood in the stove without burning myself. Now that may sound a little strange or a little extreme, but it was a real experience. I could see through the flame. I could see where the flame would go through my hand, but not hurt the skin of my hand. And so I'm talking about this because we think of this kind of Satori experience or Satori enlightenment, illumination, as being something that only some people can get, that some people can do. But what I know about it is that this is about the most simple elements of living. This is about the simple things being what counts the most. It's not about how strong we are or how well we can think or how good we are at our jobs or what we look like. It's about being in the simplicity of being so that there can be no distance. When we are simple, there is no distance between us and anything else. So in my title, Satori this, Satori that, it really means, a little bit of this and a little bit of that in this perfect blend of awareness that is representative of bringing ourselves into what we call space and time more fully. So does that make sense? Is that clear enough?
Yes, it does. I think I think one of the questions would be how an individual would know, or how they would be aware that that's the state of being that they are in.
Well, that's a really good question, and the answer that's coming to me most immediately is that it feels better than the way we usually feel. So if you are living a fairly usual life in which that what I'm attempting to describe is not normal, when you feel this complete oneness with everything, there is a fullness and a lightness and a lovingness and a sureness that surpasses what we usually and generally know. And when you start to look at the things that we feel have dimension to them, the table, the computer, the car, the road, touching and feeling the wind, when in our usual human states, they have limits to them. They have those things have a tangible edge. In this Satori type experience I'm talking about, those edges do not exist. There is no sense of dimensionality even. Everything is one, however it is presenting. And when this happened for me, in this way this time, the word immediately popped into my head. It's not a word I normally use. I don't really even think that I think about that, Satori very often. But I knew that was sort of the most well-known vernacular for that experience, although there will be millions of others. So it's a sense of intuitive. It is being in a place of intuitive connection that is fairly unsurpassed in most daily experiences.
Lovely. So well, with your meditation and the number of years that you've been doing it, I mean, that's wonderful span of time that you are able to hold it is magnificent.
Yeah, and all I need to do now, even though it's not quite as active, all I need to do now is to remember the sensation, and I am immediately again in that full-on sensation.
Sense memory.
Precisely. And in this moment, I am not just here in Canada on my side of my computer screen. I am also in the room with all of you, creating this dialogue between us, and I have no sense of miles between us or space and time between us either. It is a very in the moment knowing that we are really together, completely together.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anatara. I like the little bit of this and that.
Let's make it as casual as that, and maybe we won't seem so unattainable.
Yes. It's funny because those moments, it can sometimes just be the moment, right? And it doesn't have to be a prolonged moment. Absolutely.
Precisely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome.
Little this, though.
It was fun.
And of course, we would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us in this new platform of education and information. We're grateful for your continuous support, and we look forward to hearing your feedback on how we can serve you better. You can also connect with Anatara by following her on Twitter @Anatara, and of course through her own website, anatara.ca. anatara.ca. We would love for you to leave your comments or suggestions. Do so at any time, even in the years to come, on the website itself in the comment box, or give us a call at 818-LETS-TALK. 818-LETS-TALK. Until next time, namaste.
I realized that everything that we do is a breadcrumb for ourselves. Every time you feel confused or you have a bad moment, you feel elation about something, you smile at a sunset, you're leaving breadcrumbs for yourself to follow. You're telling yourself that that little bit of information is a tasty, delicious morsel that you want, that you can pick up, that you can eat, that you can imbibe, that you can pull into yourself. It's all of those things are in